You guys, today we have a great interview coming your way. I'm excited for this one. It's a coach who actually coached here locally at Boise State for 8 years, but has so many years of experience dating back to the 70s all the way through, even after Boise State. He has so many memories, so much knowledge to share with us. And I hope you guys, again, as always, take notes on this one. Please pull out your phones, pull out your notepad. When you're listening to this podcast, if you hear something, either rewind it or pause it and take notes. That's the whole point of the show. He's got so many golden nuggets for coaches, for athletes, those who are trying to get into the college world and understand kind of what the college realm looks like now, all those different things. It's a great episode on the Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Game Time Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. 5 years running into the show. You know, I started this back in 2017, and I tell you guys this in every single episode, but I want to remind those, especially if this is your first time listening to the show, that I'm just so grateful for everybody who has tuned in over the last 5 years. And even if this is your first time, I am so happy to have you guys here. It's because of you guys that we've been able to grow this show to what it is. I remember, if you guys don't know the origin of my show, brief rundown, 2017, I was 28 years old, sitting in a class at Boise State. Yes, I graduated when I was 28. I was a non-traditional student, but I was going to school full-time, working full-time at Boise State. Bob Beeler, who happens to be the voice of the Boise State Broncos, was in our class as a guest speaker. He was the one who actually motivated me to start my own show rather than working for a corporation doing radio. So I did that back in 2017, January 17, and it's still going on today. And because of all of the listeners, we have now reached 93 different countries. We're all across the world in every 50 states, like every one of the 50 states, and we're just happy to have everybody here. I'm grateful for all the support that everyone showed. So thank you guys for joining us. And if you would like, please hit that subscribe button and possibly leave us a review when this interview is done and let us know what you thought of our interview. Joining me today on the show is it's a really special opportunity for me because I threw out a Twitter update. I said, hey, does anybody have a guest that you'd like to bring onto the show or like that I could contact? And Marcus Graham over at Hawaii High School reached out to me and he's like, hey, I'm not sure if you know who my dad is. And it wasn't, I knew who his dad was, but I didn't put the two and two together for some reason until he said that. He's like, my dad would probably be a great guest for your show. We just got to see if he'd be willing to do it. So Marcus reached out to me, let me know. And then flash forward a month later, I'm at the state basketball tournament and our guest here, Coach Greg Graham, was at the state basketball tournament. I didn't know you were actually sitting behind Marcus. I went over to Marcus. I said, hey, man, don't forget, I want to get your dad on the show. And he goes, well, he's actually sitting right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, he is. So I was like, so it all just worked out. It's kind of weird how the things align when they need to. But I went up there, spoke to Coach, and we were able to get him on the show. His name's Coach Greg Graham. He's got a lot of history, but here in the Valley, you guys might know him if you're in the Treasure Valley of Idaho for his tenure that he had with Boise State. But he's been coaching across the board for years and years. He's got a lot of experience, and he's going to share some knowledge with us today. So, Coach, I just want to say thank you for joining the show and being willing to share your expertise with us today.
Well, my pleasure. And I'm a little surprised, you know, your kids don't always recommend you for things. So I'm proud that Marcus thought enough of me to recommend me. So
dude, all I'll say is Marcus is a good guy, man. I've always had good interactions with the guy, and you've earned those brownie points. I guess. Yeah. You gotta give some respect to him because he was the first one to hit me up. So whatever that means for him, maybe get him a good Christmas gift or something. Cause yeah, he was the first one to DM me when I sent that out there. So I'm grateful for him. Mark's a good dude. So Coach, let's rewind the clock real quick to before you even started coaching back in the late 70s. I want to talk about your athletic experience just in the sport of basketball specifically. You know, talk to me about your upbringing and the sport of basketball and what your history was prior to the coaching realm and what made you love the game.
Well, I grew up in a football town. I live right beside the Football Hall of Fame and back in Ohio. But I was pretty fast, but I was skinny. I played what we called little leopard football then. And I broke my arm 2 years in a row. So I figured time to move on. So I moved to basketball and I got hooked on it. And maybe I was lucky. All the good athletes played football, so basketball was a little easier for me to play in. My dad was a high school player, and my uncle coached high school basketball in Pittsburgh for about 40 years. So kind of a basketball background that way. And it's really the only thing I ever wanted to do. Once I got to high school, I knew I was going to go to college, not to play, but I knew I was going to go to college. I wanted to be a high school coach. And so I never really was sidetracked by anything else. I thought my dream job was to be the head coach at my high school and teach. And I was going to go to the beach in the summertime, then come back for the school year, and kind of had it planned out. And when I graduated, I coached 2 years of high school in Eugene. And I got my high school job, and I went down there, and I was there for 3 years, and I was teaching 8 biology classes a day.
Whoa.
And I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I got a chance to get on it at Oregon with Coach Haney, who was the assistant when I was there. And then I got my college career started from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's very interesting. I love the fact that, you had a little bit of coaching background with you said your uncle was coaching for 40 years in Pittsburgh. Your dad was obviously involved in the game. You knew the game. You knew the game from a coaching perspective. But I want to talk about that, transferring from the high school level as a coach to even as an assistant, like at the collegiate level, and a big college at Oregon. I mean, this is not a smaller school like NAIA or anything of that nature. What was the transition like from a coaching perspective, Coach, when you went from the high school level to the collegiate level?
Well, I initially thought that the high school had held up my career because I coached high school for 5 years. But once I got to college and saw some of the coaching going on and the organization going on, it was a real plus for me because I had to do everything myself. So, I mean, I had assistants, but at the high school level, you got to do a lot of things, and you don't have people to do everything. You have to be the strength coach. You got to do the scheduling. You have to run all the camps. You have to do all the film yourself, break the stuff down, teach everybody else. So, as I got into it, I thought that was a real plus for me down the road because I had worked with high school kids, grade school kids, junior high kids, and it ended up being a real plus for me as far as breaking down the game and teaching the game to kids. And I thought, as I went through college, it ended up being a bonus for me versus a negative because I thought, well, if I would have started 5 years ago, I might be further down the road by now. But it doesn't always work that way. But it ended up being a very good background for me because I remember I just graduated from the University of Oregon, and I was coaching at Marist High School, and I'd never coached before. And then we had summer league, and all of a sudden I had to take one of the teams. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And so it gave me a chance to get my feet wet and speak in front of kids and groups and all those type of things. And so it ended up being a real plus. And I thought it really helped me when I went to Oregon. I went as at that time, it was like a part-time assistant. Now they're called GAs or ops guys or whatever. So it gave me a good background to teach the kids coming in because they're high school kids coming in.
Totally. That's actually really cool. Now, in regards to those kids too, what advice would you give, knowing, like, just having your whole experience there, but also having the high school basketball experience, which I know some people would actually think the general fan might think that every coach starts at the lower levels and works their way up, but that doesn't actually always happen that way. Sometimes people get an in here and there, or they just start at the college level as a GA. Sometimes that's what happens. So the fact that you actually had that experience, I'm glad that you brought that up, is unique because not everybody gets that chance. So you had the opportunity to work with high school kids and then go to the college level, working with the college kids and then the high school kids transitioning. But knowing what you know from all of your years of coaching, especially at the collegiate level now, what's a piece of advice you would give to high school athletes that are working their tails off and have aspirations to play at the next level, regardless if it's a junior college or it's, a Division I university?
It's a bigger time commitment than you think. You think you're working hard, but there's always somebody else out there putting more time in. It's something that's it almost becomes a job for you because everything is so specialized these days, whether it's football, soccer, baseball, basketball. You have all the camps in the summer, the AAUs, and all those type of things. It's a major time commitment, and it's year round. Few guys are lucky they're good enough athletes they can play a couple sports, but if you're not one of those, that one sport kind of takes all your time because you need to be weightlifting, you need to be training. But the one thing that it's hard to tell parents and to tell kids because everybody wants to play on the best team, the best AU club, the team that travels, the biggest JC, the whatever it is. The key is the play. Go to a place where you can play. You don't want to go and sit just because it looks good because you're not going to advance in the game. And it's hard to tell a kid, well, don't go to this school, go to this other school where you can play, or this program's better for you. But the key is for kids to play. And it's going to be interesting to see how this portal works out down the road because a lot of kids go, everybody wants to go to bigger school. But, well, if you go and don't play, did you make a good move? And there's consequences to everything you do. My dad's always used to say, well, it's your decision, but you just have to live with the consequences, good or bad. That you got to make sure that's the decision you want to do. And I see a lot of kids transfer, and all of a sudden they're not playing anymore where they were starters at the school they left. When you're old like I am, you look back, it might have been better to go to a smaller school and get to play more. And but you trade off a lot of things because you get, like I went to Oregon, you get to travel and play in nice places and stay in places. So there's a big trade-off there. But for younger kids coming through, when they're playing on these travel teams and all these other things, get on a team where you're going to play because you get better playing, not sitting and watching.
I love that. Playing, like getting on a team that you can actually play and get the reps and do that. You brought up a good point, Coach, which is regarding the transfer portal. I was actually just speaking to a local high school coach here yesterday on the phone. I was having a conversation with him, picking his brain on a few things. And he mentioned the transfer portal. I know that's now a thing that you didn't necessarily have to deal with as a coach at your time, but now these athletes, it's interesting. These guys coming out of high school, they've got to be very cautious of where they're going because I think last year there was over 1,000 names in the transfer portal. And a lot of these guys are like sophomores and juniors in the transfer portal. And a lot of the universities and a lot of the schools are now looking there first before they even look at the high school kids coming out. They're looking at the transfer portal to see if anybody can, match their needs, and then they'll go. Whereas before that wasn't really an issue. So the recruiting has kind of changed. So I'm just curious on your take on that and the evolution of the game, if you can call it evolution. Some people have a different opinion on it in that matter, but like the transfer portal and how it's changed the game in regards to recruiting. Do you have any insight on that from a coach's perspective?
Well, it works both ways. I mean, because the freshman has to worry about kids coming in, but the coach has to worry about the freshman leaving.
Okay, yeah.
And so, it kind of works both ways. And, in the past, coaches, I don't want to say we're more into developing players and programs, but you don't know how long you're going to have your players now. And if you're taking transfers all the time, you have to adjust your system because you don't have as much time to teach them your system. We used to play really fast, and we did it at Oregon with Ernie, and we did it at Boise State. And we used to think about it as the first year you teach the system, the second year they learn it, and the third year they get good at it. Well, you don't have that anymore. You got to have a system that's very adaptable and very easy to teach kids, and they can retain. Because if you're at a smaller school and you have a really good player, he's probably going to leave. And when you get to older guys, you're taking all the transfers. You're getting new guys every year, and every guy coming in thinks he's going to be the star. That, to me, that would be the hard part. Everybody's coming in. You take 4 transfers, they're transferring up thinking they're going to be the guy, and so there's a basketball side of it, and then there's a management side of it. The portal, I think last year there were like 1,700 kids, and there's only 350 Division I. I know there's Division II in there also. So even if there's 500 kids, that's over 3 per school. That's a lot of transfers. And I go back and forth on whether it's a good thing or not, because I think kids should have opportunity, just like coaches have opportunities to move. But that's a lot, and it's creating a lot of uproar, a lot of places, like you said. A lot of guys, the guy I used to work for at Bradley, he lost 5 starters coming back. He was going to have a real good team, and all 5 starters transferred up. And so I just wiped him out. And so I think once this thing settles down a little bit, it'll slow down, and people will see the result of it, and kids will start seeing, well, there's no reason to go there if I'm not going to play as much, and coaches aren't going to guarantee it to you. You got to earn it. But right now it's kind of in an uproar, and it's going to stay, and it's kind of like society. I mean, everybody is going to what's better for them at the time and taking advantage of it, whether it's your job or career or whatever it is. It's just not athletes. We see it as athletes because that's what's on TV all the time, and we all associate with it. But every business, there's headhunters companies and agents for every business there is, and people looking for jobs for you because you're always trying to progress ahead. And so I can't blame the players for wanting to do that, but it's just has kind of created a tough situation for everybody. And hopefully we can get it under control so it cuts it way back to where it was and it slows down quite a bit.
Totally. And that makes total sense, though. It's a double-edged sword. It works both ways. It's interesting. Everyone's trying to navigate this whole thing right now, but it has kind of thrown a little bit of a pattern interrupt, if you will.
Well, I've talked to some coaches who aren't even recruiting. They're just waiting to see who gets on the portal, and they're going to go that way. And with COVID last year, recruiting's really backed up because they gave everybody an extra year. So last year they didn't need to have seniors because they had their freshman class already in there. And this junior class this year that is now seniors, they're backed up behind those guys. So it's going to take a couple years to get that settled out. And it's an interesting dynamics that college athletes are going through right now.
Absolutely. It's a little bit, I think the general fan might not have understood any of that stuff, but when you just mentioned that, add on top of it the COVID year, like you said, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it from behind the scenes. And so really what it comes down to is the athletes need to be aware that I think they need to be educated. The parents need to be educated. The high school coaches need to be educated on that too, to help guide these athletes in the right direction so that when they go to the next level, they are doing what's best for them, but understanding the situation that's at hand and where the coaches are at and everything. There's a lot that goes on. Now, I want to get to the point of here in your career, Coach, because like I said before, for the listeners here that are in the Treasure Valley of Idaho, obviously the show is all across the entire globe at this point, but we do have a big, group of listeners because that's where I'm from is here. We know of you from your Boise State tenure. I think it was 8 seasons total that you were here. There was a lot of good memories in that time. And that was actually like, me growing up, the late 90s with Roberto Bergerson and all those guys, that was kind of like when I started basketball, but the early 2000s, kind of towards the 2009, 2010 era, were also another realm of really, really good athletes. And I want to talk to you about some of your memories at Boise State. And I remember the NIT. I think it was UNLV that you guys played. I was talking to Kobe Carl on the show a couple months back when we were talking about those days. But like Brian DeFerris, Booker Neighbors, a lot of those guys that I looked up to a lot, and I still play with those guys still to this day. There were just some really good athletes that came through the university when you were here. So I would love to hear, your thoughts, early 2000s, coming from a big school like Oregon over to Boise State, smaller school, but a pretty good community. Talk to us about like the transition there, and then just your overall, like maybe your favorite memory from Boise State during your time there, or maybe 2 memories if you have them. Just kind of talking about the community and the university.
Well, the community's great. It makes the transition really easy. And when I was at Oregon as the assistant, Coach Pete was a receivers coach. And then when Hawk came over, he brought Pete over as offensive coordinator. So Pete was already over there, and I knew Pete. And we had talked, and he told me how nice it was. And we talked about the people in the communities and the support. And we loved it there. We love Boise. That's home to my boys. Both my boys live there because that's kind of where we spent the most time, because we moved about every 4 years in our business. My wife's what a trooper, because I would take off to the new job and she'd have to pack up the boys in the house and do all the dirty work. But we really enjoyed Boise. Boise's a great place, and Phoenix is pretty nice down here in Scottsdale, but we may have 2 homes, one up there and one here, and go back and forth because we like Boise. And no, I was fortunate. We had some good guys play for us and some dedicated guys. I mean, Kobe, you mentioned, he's one of the biggest basketball junkies ever was, and he just got a new job this year. He's the D-League coach for the Sixers this year. He was with the Lakers for the last about 5 years. Now he's over with Coach Rivers hired him on as the D-League coach for the Sixers. But we had a couple different groups go through there. One thing I was proud of also is the time we were there, they started the academic requirements for the university and colleges. And we were the #1 academic school all 4 years we were there. And all our players have graduated. So they were good people off the court. A lot of memories, different groups, different personalities. I think that's the one thing, you always like to have veterans back on your team because you're going to be better and you know them. But boy, I always look forward to the freshmen moving into the dorms because they have no idea what they're doing. They're full of energy and their eyes are wide open and they're in awe of everything. And I think that turnover from a coaching standpoint, you see a lot of college coaches, we stay as long as we can, you know, because we like it. And the kids keep us young and keep us fresh. And but I always look forward to the day the freshmen come to the dorms. We went down and helped them move in, and they're all excited about everything because they're not, they don't know what's going to hit them real quick, but it's a good moment at the time, you know, to bring them in. And then a couple good memories. I remember Aaron Haynes, and Aaron is still playing in Japan. He has played for like 15 years after, or close, and maybe more than that now. I forget how old Aaron is, but he's had a great career over in Japan. And Aaron could sleep. And so we'd get on the plane, and the plane is the only time that nobody could get to me at Boise, you know, as the head coach. So Aaron and I used to race to see who could get to sleep the fastest on the plane. And he'd get in, I'd get in. And I'm telling you, sometimes we would touch down, and I thought we were taking off. The trips weren't real long sometimes, and we'd race to see who could go to sleep the fastest, and guys would take the pictures and show you sleeping. And so that was one I remember with Aaron. And probably the biggest one is some kids had girlfriends or close friends they'd go to through the holidays, but we always had the team over, whoever didn't have a place to go for holidays, whether it was Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. And we always practiced in the morning so we could get it out of the way and everybody could go eat, and they'd be spread out all over the house watching games or sleeping, or they like to play dominoes. And my wife loved having them over, and she'd cook. And then Marcus and Max were a little smaller when we started. And so they got to know all the guys and be around them. And I always thought those relationships were really good for my kids and us and them. And because I'm from Ohio and I went to school at Oregon. And when you go away from home, it's hard. And I never went home for Christmas in the 4 years I was at college playing. And it's a tough time sometimes, especially as you're younger. As you get junior, senior, you get other people and you kind of get through it. But that freshman, sophomore year is hard on someone that's away from home for a long time. And so I always thought that was a great thing for us to be able to have them in our homes and have the kids visit. And then the one other one, coaching-wise, that I always remember is as a coach, you don't want to create any problems you don't have to. Well, you always want everybody to be on time. And so on game night, we'd be in a hotel and we'd go down and get on the bus, and you got to be on the bus at a certain time. And I would always be ready early, but I would stay away because I didn't want to have to, you're late. You know, you got to discipline somebody just because they're a few minutes late for the bus or whatever. So I always make sure coach was the last one on the bus. And so the night we were playing in the championship game with New Mexico State, I'm standing around outside, and one said, "Coach, you ready?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just waiting." He said, "Coach, they're already here." And we went and got on the bus and looked back, and they were all there ready to go. And I thought we had a pretty good chance to get that one that night because everybody was on the same page.
That's so cool. Speaking of so I waited my whole life, like up until that point. You know, like I said, I started following really closely Boise State basketball in 1996. I was 8 years old at the time. Then through the late 90s, you know, the Roberto era, and then early 2000s, and all the way through, there were some really close times of potentially making the NCAA tournament. But then I leave on a church mission. Now, get this, Coach. I leave on a church mission, and it's in March of that year when you guys ended up making like it was the New Mexico State, is like whatever, the triple overtime or some of that nature,
Right.
Whatever the thing was. I didn't get to see it because I was in Brazil for 2 years at the time. So I happened to be in Brazil. I wait my whole life. I was so bitter because I was like, I've waited this whole entire time of my life, like an avid fan, and they make it when I'm not here. That's fantastic. But it just kind of reminds me, though, as you're bringing up those memories, I was just kind of like, just knowing the names that you were mentioning, Aaron Haynes, those types of guys. I know Jason Ellis was there, Brian DeFerris. We mentioned a couple of those guys, but then you had like Thomas, who was there. You had like you said, you had a couple of different, you know, players, like sets of players that came through that were really, really good. And those guys in the late 2000, like 2007 to 2010 era, I used to play with them over at home court when I was, you know, just out of high school. I was 18, 19 years old, and they were over there hooping sometimes in the Pro-Am. And I just remember just how I looked up to them because I was like, dang, they're only a few years older than me, but man, you'd think that they were like seasoned vets because they were so good. The NIT game. There was an NIT game in Nampa. Do you remember this one? I think you guys were playing
No
Milwaukee.
doubt.
Yeah.
I remember that. Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite memories because they had to move it over to the Idaho Center in Nampa because of some schedule conflicts over at the whatever it was at the time, Taco Bell Arena. I don't know what the Extra Mile Arena now. There's some scheduling conflicts. The NIT, you had to host it over here at the Idaho Center. They brought everything over here. I was at that game. You said you remember it. Can you recall any memories from that particular game? Because that was one of my favorite ones I've ever been to.
Well, the first game we played at home, we played Vegas. And then the second game we played Milwaukee with Coach Pearl at Auburn. He was the coach.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in, and I would like to take credit for it, but I had no idea. And I don't know whether it was Gene Blameyer came up with the idea or who did, but they moved our floor out there. And that just, when we got there, it made it feel like home because we were just going in, playing in a strange place. And all of a sudden we walk out there and our floor's down. And I'd never thought about it. It never crossed my mind. And it was such a neat deal to have it out there with our floor and play, and made us feel a lot more comfortable. And it was a close game, and we won by a little bit right down the stretch. And but I always remember walking in there and having that floor down out there. And then the other one I remember, because you don't let me forget, is one of our good friends and boosters, Kenny Bolton. He said, well, I'm going to have the first basketball tailgate. So he always had tailgate of football, but he did a tailgate for the basketball game out there that day. And so that was a great day for us. That was a good day.
That's so cool, man. It takes me back in time because I was a junior in high school at the time, and I loved that team, and it was just such a cool atmosphere. I was at both of those games, the UNLV and then the Milwaukee, Wisconsin game. It's just crazy to see. Like, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was like almost 20 years ago. It's 18 years ago, so it's just nuts how it's kind of changed.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's time goes fast now. You know?
It does.
You get old quick, but no, that was a great group. Most of them they're all very successful right now in their careers, and some have families and doing well. Some are coaching, and I know Reggie's coaching down at CSI, and Bausch has done well, and here he's the main cheerleader now at the basketball games. And Jason's a fireman there in town and doing very well, and just the guys have done great.
That's so cool. All those guys are special dudes. I've loved chatting with every one of them. And as I've gotten older, I've always liked to converse with them in different atmospheres. And like you said, Bausch, main cheerleader, but he's an amazing real estate agent now, one of the top in the entire state of Idaho.
I might have to ask him for a job. He's done so well, or he can take care of my boys maybe.
There you go. Exactly. Now, Coach, you have experience with the NCAA tournament, the big talk around the town now. Boise State obviously gets in. They had a successful season this year. Really good season, winning the conference outright in the regular season, then winning the actual tournament itself. Whether or not they got hosed with the seeding is another story. That's a whole different debate. But they're going to the NCAA tournament this week. They face off Memphis in the first round, and they're excited. You know, the fan base is excited. The players are obviously excited. This is a huge thing for the university. But, you know, from your experience, what can they be expecting? Like, what advice would you give to players to, like, I guess, enjoy it at the same time? Like, you want to enjoy it. It's an experience that not everybody gets to have, but also be able to hone that in and focus on the task at hand.
Well, first, let me just congratulate them. They had a great season. Leon's done a great job since he's been there the whole time, and he just keeps piling up the wins and the victories. And they had a great run this year. Did a great job in the tournament, and he's really taken that program to the next level and done a fabulous job. And this year's a different team for him than usual because they're more of a defense rebounding team where they used to be more of an open shooting team before. But it's hard. It's hard to tell somebody to enjoy that while you're going through it because you're so geared into what you need to do, and you're just you almost get afraid to let yourself go because you're going to miss something in the tournament. You know, for us, it was the first time. It's not like we'd been there every year, so it kind of gets easier for you. And usually you're playing somebody bigger all the time, so you got to make sure you cover all your bases. But my advice has always been try to keep the same routine you always have. You got to enjoy it, but you got to kind of keep your same routine. Don't let the media get you out of it or get sidetracked by other things. Do what you need to do. You got to enjoy it and have fun, no question about it, but try to keep a normal routine going so your kids feel comfortable, because you're still, as much as you want to enjoy it, you're still there to win. And keeping your same routine, I think, helps you do it. I know some coaches that they go when they travel, stays in the same hotels and same restaurants, and if they lose, they get a new hotel and eat a different restaurant. And so just keep your same routine. Kids will be ready. You worry about, well, the kids be ready. No, they're ready, and they'll get themselves ready. But just keep it a normal routine. Don't let it get too crazy on you.
I love that, man. I love it. So, Coach, just a few more questions
Sure.
for you as we get ready to wrap this one up for you. But, I ask a lot of athletes that have been on the show, the Jerry Stackhouses, the Chris Childs, the Walter Bonds even, and, Roberto Burks, anyone who's played at the professional level. And I've had football players, baseball players, basketball players, hockey players. And I always ask them a question about the retirement factor. Like, when did you know it was time to hang it up? But from a coaching perspective, obviously, typically speaking, I should say, coaching, the tenure is a lot longer because it's not as physically demanding on the body as actually playing. But when did you know? I mean, after Boise State, you still coached up until I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you had Bradley, you went to Washington State. Like, you had a lot of experiences post Boise State. We were just kind of focusing on that for about 10 minutes, but you had a lot of experiences. But when did you know as a coach that it was time to say, okay, I've had my run, and it's time to enjoy the sunshine in Arizona, so to speak? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I'm not sure I did.
Okay.
Because left Washington State not under my terms, and so I still wanted to coach. But I'd also drug my wife around the country for 30 years, and she's lived in what I count about 7 states and about 10 different homes, and our kids were grown, and if I couldn't find something that I really wanted, a spot I thought would be good for all of us, that let's look at a place that we want to move to. And we weren't sure where. We wanted to get good weather, and obviously can't afford California anymore, so that was out. And we picked down here because of the weather. It's a lot of people will visit you. They'll come through here. A lot of Pac-12 people from Oregon, Washington State come through here. Our friends, the Boise people, will visit down here. We want to be able to travel. Phoenix is a hub for getting to Mexico. I used to coach at San Diego State. We can drive over there and see our friends. Vegas is 4 hours away. It's just kind of a neat location down here. I like to golf. I'm not any good, but I like to golf. And so I'm not sure I had a set time to retire. I talked to a friend of mine who used to coach me, Jack Fertig, and he had a good statement, because he went from college, he went back to high school teaching, and they used to ask him in the lounge, what's the difference between high school and college? And he had a great answer, and I always use it, is that everybody looks to retire. When's my job? When can I retire? When can I get out? When do I get my 30 years in teaching? When do I get my 20 years in with the government? Coaches, we don't look at it that way. We never look at retirement. I would still be coaching if I was at the right spot. I'd still be coaching for, I don't know, a few more years till I'm 70 or whatever. We don't look at retirement. We look at our team the next year, and we look forward to coming back. And I shouldn't speak for all coaches, but I mean, you look at all the coaches. I mean, Coach K just got done. He's 75, right? He, if his health was a little better, he'd probably still be going. Coach Boeheim, he's in his 70s, and but we don't look at it as looking to retirement. It just kind of happens on us. Some happens on it better than it happened on me, and some step out like Coach K. But we look at work. We're fortunate. My son always tells me this, that I've got to work. I never had to work for 40 years. I got to do what I love to do and enjoy it, and it's been a great thing. And like I said, we live down here now, and I helped out a little bit this year. Excuse me. One of my friends needed some help, so I stick my hand in a little bit, and I go to games all the time. I was at the grind session. There's a big prep school tournament last night here in Phoenix. I was down there, and my wife's going to retire here, so I'll probably go to more games because I'll probably get in her way too often. So I'll probably have to get out of the house after a while.
I love it, man. I love it. And yeah, we got to give a shout out to your wife. I've never met her, but I'm sure she's an amazing woman because, like you said, your words exactly. She's a trooper. She's done her time with me and the wife of a coach, traveling and all the stuff. And so, shout out to her. And that's awesome.
She has been. She's a trooper. You know, she raised the boys. I don't want to say by herself, but you know, Dad would come home for a trip, and I'd spoil him because I'm not there. And she says, you know, I just worked on them for 3 weeks to get them in line. You come home in 2 days, you let it all go and ruin everything I've done. And but she's been a trooper, and she's always said, hey, wherever you want to go, we're good. You just tell me where to go, and we've been to a few places.
I love it, man. I love it a lot. That's awesome. You know, one of the things when I was talking to Marcus, I went to a football game locally here at Hawaii when they first opened, and I had my keychain. No, if you can see this, I have a Buckeyes keychain. Okay,
there we go.
That was the talking point from Marcus. He's like, "Oh yeah, go Bucks," you know. And him and I started chatting. He was working the concessions that night, and I was telling him because I've been a huge Ohio State fan since I was 7 years old. Nobody actually understands why, but it was because of Eddie George. That was my favorite player when I was a little kid. And so I just started rooting for Eddie George when I was 7 years old. And then that just grew into a fandom for the entire university. I was at the point where I wanted to go play for them. I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to play football, you know, the typical kid that wanted to do all that. Then I realized what that actually takes as an athlete and the financial commitment to out-of-state tuition. But anyway, and up until this day, Coach, I do a show for Ohio State on YouTube called Scarlet and Great. I love them. I'm well connected to the university. I'm a Blitnikoff Award voter. I love Ohio State. And so when I found out that connection that we were chatting about it, like there's just this Buckeye connection, I was like, wow, like that's very rare because they call me the Boise Buckeye because there's very few of them here. Real quick, just your thoughts on the university. You and I had kind of chatted about Ohio State. You were born and raised around Canton, around the NFL Hall of Fame area, you said, or whatever. And so you've been around that spot. You've also lived in Boise. I just want to bring this to the fans here. I love Boise State. I'm an alum of Boise State. I've been a Boise State fan my whole life too, for football, basketball, whatever. But there is a difference between the culture at Ohio State and the culture here. And I'm trying to educate my fellow Boise State fans and friends of that difference. But do you have any experience that you could share as far as the culture growing up over in that type of an atmosphere compared to maybe here in a smaller town like Boise?
Well, might sound strange, but I've never been to a Ohio State football game the last couple of years. We went back to the Oregon Ohio State game this past year, and we went to the Nebraska game. But you know, when we were at and this is kind of a different comparison, but when we were at Washington State, the athletic budget was, I think, like $60 million. And Ohio State's is 190. So that I'd tell you kind of right there what, you know, the difference in things. And Boise obviously is down probably closer to, I'm sure closer to Washington State than that other end of it. And that's what's been so good about Boise State, though, with the fans and the athletic programs. They've been able to compete at that level. Like I said, Leon's in tournament again, and football's been great. And, you know, to be able to compete at that level and with less resources, that's quite an accomplishment. And the support there, I thought was very good. And the other thing, Boise hasn't been around from a university standpoint that long, so the alumni base isn't as big as it will be as it keeps growing, because, you know, Ohio State, they're getting 100,000 at football games. I mean, that's a lot of alumni to donate back and, you know, do all those type of things for the school. But, you know, I can't complain from when I was there. The support that I got from Boise, and, you know, I was fortunate I was at Oregon, so we were the Nike school. And when I was over there, and as a matter of fact, when I went there to college, Nike just started. Coach Bowerman was our track coach, and that was Phil's partner there. He was our track coach when I got to school. So, you know, I've seen all the things that they have and the facilities they have, but hey, Boise State has more than held its own. And, you know, the other great thing, I just thought of this, the memory I had of being at Boise State, and this isn't in basketball, but we got to go down to the Oklahoma football game, and Gene took us all down there. We had a plane and went down, and we flew down in the morning, flew back afterwards, and I canceled practice that day so we could go to the game down there. And I always remember that football game being a big memory as well.
That's funny you say that. That was one of my first experiences at a major football game. I was 18 at the time. I was there too. That was crazy. That was hook and ladder, Statue of Liberty. That's cool that you guys had that too. It's funny because, Coach, you mentioned when we were talking, you went to that Nebraska game. I happened to be there too, which is random.
Yep.
Like there was a connection there. I'm like, who do I know that actually went to the Ohio State in Nebraska? Like I was there too. So like I'm with you on that. And I just want to shout out to everybody who's listening as far as Boise State is concerned. What Coach Graham just said was a huge piece. The financial resources that universities that are smaller like this compared to those major universities like the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Alabamas, all those they have a lot of money that comes through there. I don't think people realize how much money. So you can build better resources. It's better for recruiting. It's a bigger hotspot. But Boise State has been able to hold their own in multiple sports. And that's another piece. If you guys go back and listen to one of my episodes with Mindy K. Larson, she's the deputy commissioner of the Summit League. When you make the NCAA tournament, there's a financial benefit from that as well. I don't think people realize that. And if you win in the NCAA tournament for basketball, each time you win, there's a little bit more money that's generated because it's a split from the NCAA as a nonprofit's split amongst the conference. So it's huge. Like, especially now with the Mountain West having 4 teams in, that's a big thing. So hopefully that can stem. You guys remember when Boise State won the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma, like Coach Graham was just referencing that game. That was kind of the start of the program getting more steam. The whole university was becoming big. It had better resources, better facilities, better everything. And then that helps recruiting, and that stems moving forward like a domino effect. So hopefully, this is not the beginning. This is just, hopefully it just continues on to move forward, because you kind of built that base. It's been a good program. It's had some ups and downs, and now the basketball program's continuing on. Hopefully this can help with recruiting in the future. So last question I got for you, Coach. Biggest life lesson that basketball has taught you?
Oh, boy. There's a lot of them. I mean, to me, sports is kind of a microcosm of life, because you go through everything in a 2-hour period, success, failure, hard work, disappointment, joy. You can go through so many things and see it in such a quick setting as a 2-hour practice or a game or boy, I would say perseverance. You just got to hang in there. And I know my wife used to tell my boys to hang in there. Her saying was, the cream will come to the top. It's just whether you can wait it out long enough. And but I would say probably perseverance. And the other one I would say, whether it's as a player or as a coach, is to surround yourself with the best people you can. If there's 10 people and 9 of them are bad, the 10th one is going to end up being bad, or right. If you go the other way, it works the other way. So whether you're hiring people, you're coaching with people, you have players playing for you, or what is, try to have yourself in the best group of people you can be in. Successful people or around successful people, and that's a couple of things we try to stress to our guys. And like I said, our guys have done very well. They've all graduated, and a lot of them played ball overseas for a while and then came back and got into their careers. And the other thing I hope they got out of it is to be a good person. To me, that's just as important as everything, as the basketball and the school and everything else. Is being a quality person is big.
Those are huge. I'm taking notes here too. I hope those who are listening, whether you're on an iPhone, whatever, you either taking notes with a pen and paper, or you pull up your notepad on your phone and take some notes right there. Rewind those things that Coach Graham just mentioned right there. Those are huge. And that's what I love to learn from someone who's been there like yourself, who's gone through years and years of experience as an athlete, as a coach, whatever. You've been around it, you've seen it. And so that's what I appreciate you sharing that. So I just want to say, as we wrap this up, Coach Graham, it's been an honor. I appreciate you joining us and being willing to share your story, my man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Go Broncos. And I got to throw this plug in. Go Storm for Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. Go Storm. State champs, baby. I love it. For all those who are listening, hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview. If you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, let us know what you think. That'd be awesome. And we'll be coming to you next week with another one.